What is going on, everybody? So I am back today because, as a lot of you know, I'm a big fan of the production company A24. I really love that they give independent directors the ability to create some really incredible films. And I do a segment on my channel called the A24 Archive where I'm going through A24's entire filmography from start to finish. And obviously, I've seen A24 films every single year, but I've never watched all of their movies. And I thought it would be fun today to talk about some of the films in their catalog that I personally feel like are completely overlooked, that people don't talk about enough, that I think were so well made, so well put together, and that just deserve a little bit more attention than they've actually got. So today I'm going to mention a few of those films that I think are worth highlighting, but I would love to know in the comments, what are some A24 films that you think don't get enough love? Because I feel like there are a lot in their catalog that really just don't get talked about nearly enough. And so we're going to get into it right now. So first up is going to be the film Lamb from director Valdemar Johansson. This was from 2021. This movie, when it first came out, I felt like it got really mixed reactions, and that I can't remember even if it got a very large theatrical run. I'm assuming that it didn't. The first time I watched this movie was when it became available VOD. And I know that there was a lot of people that were kind of all over the place about this movie, but I truly loved it a lot. I think that it is an incredibly tight, tense, uncomfortable, familial drama about these parents who have tried to have a kid for a really long time, and they finally get the opportunity to have a child, but it is not a conventional child. It is a half lamb, half human hybrid. And I just thought that it was so well crafted, and not only the cinematography, which is absolutely breathtaking. The cinematographer in this film just absolutely blew my mind with some of the shots that he was able to pull off. The performances are all really fantastic, but I think it dives into the human psyche, looking at a couple of different things. First off, people who yearn to be parents and that they want to be parents, and the lengths that they'll go to try to be parents, and then what they're willing to take from others and to do to have this family that they've always desired. I thought that was a really fascinating concept psychologically, and the movie really kind of looks at the way human beings treat animals as well, and how we feel sort of entitled to govern and reign over animals because of the fact that we're more intelligent than them, we can do more than them, and so because of that we feel like we have complete and total reign over animals. And I thought that was a really unique thing, and the way that the film ends in the third act really kind of makes you think about all of those concepts blended into one. And it's just a really unique, surreal, abstract experience that feels very dreamlike as you're watching it. I really love the color temperature in this movie. It's just one that every time I've revisited it since the first time I watched it, I grow to appreciate more. And I understand this movie isn't going to be for everybody because it is a slower paced familial drama. For people who love a film like Hereditary in A24's catalog, I was surprised more people didn't champion this movie, especially with how kind of like strange and uncomfortable it was. But I will continue to recommend it to people because I feel like it's a slept on gem. Up next is going to be the film Saint Maude from director Rose Glass. I think this one might have a little bit more popularity than Lamb does, but this movie really resonated with me very heavily. And obviously, I've talked before about the fact that I was raised in a hyper religious conservative household, and so watching a movie about a young girl who has gone through a tragedy and has been indoctrined into a religion and believes that there really is no lifestyle outside of that, and having people externally trying to influence her as like hey, you can have a belief system, but you can also have a life outside of a belief system, and how the control of that indoctrination causes her to essentially lose her mind and be willing to do everything for what she assumes is God, which I think is a really interesting idea that the film conveys throughout the middle to the third act point of like, is this really God or is it something else? And I really liked that a lot. And it's a tight 80-minute runtime, but it has such an incredible score, a really unsettling atmosphere, great performances, especially from Morfydd Clark, who's the lead character in this movie. There's some really uncomfortably horrific scenes, but it's also a very sad movie because you're watching this character who has been indoctrined into this belief system because she feels like it's her only way out. And I think it's a huge commentary on how many people in our society feel like, when things get rough and things get difficult, that religion is the only way out. And unfortunately, as inviting and exciting as religion can be to a lot of people, because it feels like this communal thing where everyone can come together and kind of share and supposedly bring love to other people, it's really something that's filled with hate, and that is completely embodied in targeting groups of people and making people feel like outcasts if you don't subscribe to every single system that the religion has to offer. And yeah, this movie just really sent my mind all over the place. It stuck with me a lot after I watched it. It's a movie I love more and more every time I think about it, and I think a lot more people need to see it. Up next is going to be the 2018 Peter Strickland film In Fabric, a movie that when I mention to most people, they don't even know that it's A24, and they have never even heard of it before. This is a movie about a killer red dress. It is very, very much paying homage to 80s giallo films, possibly even more like late 70s, early 80s giallo films, especially Argento. Heavily bright color palettes. It's a commentary on consumerism as a whole, the fashion industry. There's so many different elements that you could look at that this film is commentating on. It's absolutely hilarious. There are so many deadpan, uncomfortable scenes in this. I've heard that sort of resonates through Peter Strickland's entire filmography. This is the only one of his films I've seen. I really do want to watch Flux Gourmet, which I know is streaming, I think on Hulu. It's been on Shudder for a while. I really need to check that out because I really like Peter Strickland's style. But this movie is so unique, and it's really boiled down to the incredible performances in this, the really fantastic cinematography, strange transitions that the movie has. There's some really abstract, surreal moments in the movie. There's multiple storylines that kind of overlay with each other that I thought was a really unique, unconventional storytelling method. And it also has a really great score. And it's a movie that I think about quite a bit, and I need to revisit it sometime in the future. I obviously will when I get to that period in the A24 archive. The times that I've seen it before, I've really loved it. I thought it was really fantastic. And it's a really hidden gem. And if you're into giallo films, or you're into kind of darker, comedic, violent films, I think you'll really appreciate it a lot. Up next is going to be the 2019 film The Last Black Man in San Francisco, directed by Joe Talbot. I have spoke on this film on my TikTok and my YouTube multiple times. A24 did a beautiful Blu-ray restoration of this movie. It is absolutely incredible. Probably some of my favorite cinematography in all of A24's catalog. Super unique editing choices in this. Two amazing performances from our lead characters in this movie. It's unfortunate all the things happening with Jonathan Majors and kind of showing who he is as a person, because he is a very talented actor. Clearly, he's done some things in his life that are horrible, and it's unfortunate to see someone with that much talent do so many terrible things in their life. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this movie is fantastic. It really says a lot about, toxic masculinity, especially in the African American community. Talks about, defining your personality solely based on one element. Our lead character loves this house that he believes to be his and that was in his family for so long, and he kind of lets that define who he is as a human being. And the movie kind of just looks at how people are so much more than just one thing. And it's a really beautiful movie that I would try to recommend to everyone, because I think it's really moving and really eye-opening, and it's one that I grow to appreciate more. I think I've seen this one 4 or 5 times, and I love it more every time I see it. Up next is going to be, in my personal opinion, one of my favorite A24 films that I feel like got done so dirty, and that is the film Under the Silver Lake from director David Robert Mitchell. This movie got screwed by A24, didn't hardly get any sort of theatrical run other than in a few cities. It was pushed back multiple times, and then it ended up getting a straight to VOD release. But this movie is phenomenal. I love David Robert Mitchell's debut, It Follows. It's a phenomenal horror film that also has a really great commentary. This is like David Robert Mitchell getting into David Lynch territory. Really surreal, abstract, strange storyline that's a commentary on Hollywood and how Hollywood treats women and the misogyny in the Hollywood industry, and it's handled so brilliantly well. I think that it's hilarious. There are moments that just kind of made me laugh till I cried in this movie. There are some moments that unsettled and horrified me. It is such a unique journey that from start to finish you are enamored. And even though every question that you have might not be answered, it gets a great closure at the ending that really kind of leaves you thinking about all of those themes I just discussed at the very end of the film. And I think all the performances in this are great. I really like Andrew Garfield, and he gives it his all in this. Riley Keough, while she's in the film, is absolutely phenomenal. Everybody that shows up in this movie is just great. It's truly a unique experience. If you've never seen Under the Silver Lake and you're into sort of like abstract, surreal films with dark comedy, give it at least one chance because it's 100% worth it. Up next is going to be the film Krisha from director Trey Edward Schultz. This is Trey Edward Schultz's debut. He has now done 3 films with A24. Krisha, It Comes at Night, and Waves. And Krisha is one of my favorite films that he has done. It's a really tight, intimate character drama starring Krisha Fairchild, who I think does an absolutely phenomenal job in this movie. It takes place on Thanksgiving. It's really uncomfortable, intense, and anxiety-inducing. Very similar to like a Safdie brothers film, but obviously not with the high-stakes violence that often exists in their type of movies. This is all character-driven. Trey Edward Schultz is in it as well. Krisha plays his mother, who has kind of like, she was addicted to drugs for a long period in her life. She ended up leaving him to live with her sister. She hasn't really been in the picture all that much. And so it's all about her thinking that she wants to reconnect with her family while also, you know, dealing with this horrible addiction that she had. I said drug addiction, but it was alcoholism. So this horrible addiction to alcohol that she's been dealing with for her entire life. And it's just a really eye-opening movie that I feel like a lot of people can relate to, especially if you come from some kind of dysfunctional family background. But even if you haven't, I think it speaks volumes for such a young kid to do a movie like this that has really amazing cinematography, great editing transitions, and that really kind of makes you feel uncomfortable. There's a ticking clock element that's introduced that I thought was really brilliantly handled. And yeah, it's just a really great small-scale, intimate character drama that I think more people need to watch. Up next, this is also probably in my top 10 A24 films of all time. The film 20th Century Women from director Mike Mills. This just has amazing performances from top to bottom. It's a beautiful coming-of-age story. It's a story about a relationship between a mother and a son, about friendships that build up, romantic relationships. It explores all of these different dynamics in such a brilliant way that all of them feel like they get really great closure. None of the story feels like it's left open-ended. It just left a smile on my face through a majority of the runtime of the film. It just feels like something from a completely different era. And Mike Mills started out in documentary. I also really love his film Come On, Come On that's in A24's catalog. And it's clear that he did start out in documentary because of just how realistic the character interactions feel. It doesn't feel like scripted Hollywood dialogue. It feels very naturalistic, and that's something that I can really appreciate because not all filmmakers have that ability to capture realistic conversation that feels so natural. And this movie just really is incredible. Every single time I revisit it, it wrecks me more and more. If you haven't seen 20th Century Women, go watch it. It's fantastic. And then I want to finish off talking about a film that came out in 2022, a film called Causeway. This movie was released directly to Apple TV Plus. Stars Jennifer Lawrence and Brian Tyree Henry. Brian Tyree Henry actually got an Oscar nomination for this film, which is great, but I still feel like no one watched it when it was released. This is what I talk about with 20th Century Women, where it is just two characters interacting, their dialogue sequences. Jennifer Lawrence was in the military. She went through a really traumatic experience. She gets out of the military and she's trying to reacclimate herself into life. She gets a job as a pool cleaner. She's driving. Her truck breaks down. She goes to take her truck in and she meets Brian Tyree Henry, who owns the auto repair shop, and the two of them become unlikely friends. It is really about two people who have suffered trauma, dealt with very different things in their lives, and they come together at this moment where they both need each other and can build each other up. And I think that those type of human stories are just the most beautiful things that really just resonate with me in a way that a lot of films don't. And obviously a lot of my favorite A24 films are like weird, supernatural, surrealist rides, but a lot of my favorite A24 films are really beautiful human character cancer studies. And that's what I love about Causeway. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't got a chance to watch this movie, please do. It is fantastic. So that's just some of the films in A24's catalog that I think are underrated. What are some that you think are underrated? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. As always, if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.